Hi there, in this video I'm going to take us through a visual introduction to the 1843 and the 1850 charts, which you can see right there. And why do we need to get introduced, or why do we need really to walk through them? It's because maybe it's the first time for some people to see them, but it could also be just to orient ourselves with what is physically there, what we can see on just the chart without even having a maybe a previous knowledge of it. What do you see when on the chart? So that's what we're going to walk through. Before we jump into this, I think it's very important to emphasize that these two charts, the 1843 and the 1850 charts, were very crucial to the Adventists, both in the two phases. Take the Millerites or take the Seventh-day Adventist movement later on. These charts were very fundamental and key to their understanding. Most of the doctrines that they were preaching, and most of the doctrines that were very fundamental, the pillars of Adventism, we can find them in these charts, and that's why they are very central and very important that everyone should know about them. Every Adventist should know about them, or every Christian should know what these are, because these are actually biblical doctrines which are represented in this, and visually impressing the word of God in our minds, and making it easy for us also to teach others, because when someone sees them, is really attracted by them, and it's very easy to explain to him the Bible. You could literally explain the Bible to someone in walking him through this chart, because almost all the doctrines are summarized in these two charts. Well, let's jump into the charts. First of all, maybe it's important to emphasize their similarity and how they are also different. And we can take this allusion of the Ten Commandments, which we find in Exodus 20 and Deuteronomy 5. We find that there are two versions, not two versions in the sense that they were given twice. So they are the same, but of course different also in that it wasn't the same material, which when Moses came down the mountain, the first ones broke, and then he made the second ones. Of course, we can see that they're different, but also they're the same. It's the same thing, the same message that is in the same in these two tables. And the charts, we always refer to them as Habakkuk's tables, Habakkuk's tablets or tables. You can call that. And in some way, you find that we can find this similarity: two tables, and which are similar but also different. So it's that similarity and difference that we see exist in the two charts, in the 1843 and the 1850 charts. So if you look at the charts, you see that it's organized in a very vertical and chronological format, in that there's explanatory of a timeline sort, and you find from the oldest history at the top and the most recent history in the bottom. That's what you see when you have a look at it. As you can see in the image, there's ancient, and that's how even the book of Daniel and Revelation are from ancient history to modern, and to the end of the world. In that, it goes in that manner, in a very chronological manner. And then we see that there's a backbone to these charts. Each chart has a backbone, which is at the center, and that's the historical column. And this column each presents overall a time period of 2520. We see that in both charts you can see the 677 to 1843 and 1844. 677 being the time when the Israel began to be scattered. So there's a detailed study to that, which I'm not touching in this, but to just see it. When you see the charts physically, you see that there's that the backbone, which is the backbone of the timeline, begins with 677 in the 1843 or on the left, and 1850 chart on the right. So there's that backbone which begins in 677 with the middle part 31 AD, the time of Christ's crucifixion, and to 1843 or 1844, depending on the timeline or the understanding of the time before and after they corrected the mistake in the 1850 chart. So after that follows the presentation of the visions of Daniel 2, Daniel 7 and Daniel 8, the accounts of these three visions. We can see them in both charts. To the left, you can see the red line, or the red line that covers all the, beginning with Daniel 2. Well, we know Daniel 2, the statue. Then we see Daniel 7, the lion, the bear, and the leopard, and going up to Daniel 8, where we see the little horn and most of these other things. So the same thing also is on the right hand side with the statue. The same animals are also presented: the lion with the wings, the bear with 3 ribs, the leopard with 3 heads, or 4 heads, and then we find also the beast with the seven horns, and then with the little horn that comes up. So then Daniel 8, the ram and the he-goat, which are also presented. So you see them circled in that red. So that's what you see when on the chart. So it's just literally Daniel 2, Daniel 7, and Daniel 8 accounts that are being presented here in a kind of very order, in a very approximate chronological correspondence with the central dates also. They go in line with the central dates that we just saw as the backbone of the charts. So then, if you go into details, we find Daniel 2. Daniel 2 is the statue which Nebuchadnezzar's dream. So you can see on the right you have they presented the statue of whose head, of course we can't go into details, but a head of gold, and up to the feet which are iron mixed with clay. And then we have the 10 kingdoms that are presented by the stones on the right hand side. There are certain stones that you think which seem like rocks or stones, and then there's a third part of it, that's 1, 2, 3. So the 3 that you see there, we find that later in Daniel. We find that later also in Daniel. Then on the 1850 chart, which is on the right, there's Daniel 2 also, the statue. So it's actually the same thing that you can see there. Then we go to Daniel 7, how Daniel 7 is presented. On the 1843 chart on the left-hand side, you see that's the lion who was given a human heart and became like a man walking. So that's why he's presented as like walking. Then we have the bear, we have the leopard with the 4 wings and then 4 heads. And then we have the beast, the terrible beast with whose head, whose small horn with the little horn. And the little horn is what you can see presented there with a crown. And the Bible says he spoke very great words, and words that are blasphemous. And it's the same thing on the 1850 chart, which is on the right hand side. You see the lion with the wings, and then we see the bear, the leopard with 4. It's actually these are actually the same images that we see in the 1843 chart. And then we see the terrible beast with 10 horns, and then 3 are plucked out, and the little horn comes up. So that beast is represented twice. And then finally we come to Daniel 8. Daniel 8 is the ram, and the goat. So the ram and then the goat coming from the east. Well, we'll go into those details. And then the ram hits the he-goat hits the ram, and he has a little horn. The little horn, of course, we will also find out is the Greece king, the king of Greece, Alexander. And then the little horn grows, and so also the cross is somehow touched by that red line, because the Messiah is also mentioned in Daniel 8. And then it's the same thing that we see in the chart to the left, to the right, where the ram and the he-goat. I hope you were able to follow through as we walked through Daniel 2, Daniel 7, and Daniel 8 as they are presented the charts. Or otherwise, you can also you can go back and rewatch them. So that's really very important, and we see that this is actually just the Bible being presented, to our own very understanding in a very beautiful way. You see how images can really simplify words, or can simplify something something that is perceived as theoretical, though we know that these messages are not really theoretical. So it was really the work the Lord's design that such a thing should be done, and we see the beauty of how this really works. Anyway, let's continue to see what other things that are presented in the charts. So the rest and remaining interesting parts in the charts are the part of Revelation, which we see in the charts, and the messages that are in the 1850 chart but not in the 1843. And you can see there in the 1843 chart the messages of Revelation, or the book of Revelation is we have the dragon, the red dragon that you can see on the left hand side. Then we have the beast, and we have also the woman sitting on the beast, and the subject of Islam is also presented there in the 1843 chart. But you can also see the same things in the 1850 chart, the dragon with the tail which brings down part of the stars. And then we also have the beast, and the beast that speaks like the dragon. Then we have the message of Islam and the angels' messages, plus the other angels which are represented there on the bottom left side of the 1850 chart. Then so the 1850 chart, or we see that in the 1843 chart, time prophecies are very emphasized. They emphasize. We see a lot of numbers there. Well, on the right hand side you can see a lot of numbers, and that's because numbers are really emphasized in this chart. The 2520, the 1335, the 1290, and these were all the proofs that the Millerites had when they were preaching the Seventh-day Adventist message. Then we have on the 1850 chart also the times, but here they are really very small. Well, they are presented in that small square because I think in the 1843 chart they are very large. Then the topic of Islam is emphasized more heavily in the 1850 chart. Well, there's the topic of Islam on the left-hand side, but you can also see it on the right-hand side, and it's more emphasized there because their understanding had increased by that time. So 3 topics in the 1850 chart, but which are not in the 1843 chart. So these are, we have the angels of Revelation 14. They are not in the 1843 chart, but they're here in the 1850 chart. Then we have the sanctuary and its cleansing. Well, it's evident because the Millerites had not understand the sanctuary and its cleansing, which is part of the disappointment, but we see it well illustrated in the 1850 chart because they had understand it later on. And then we have the image of the papacy. The image of the papacy is well emphasized in the 1850 chart, but it's not in the 1843 chart because of the understanding was later. So we see that there's a progress in the understanding, and that's why the progress has led to modifications in the 1850 chart, but both have very many messages common, and the other one has additional messages, and they are all very beautifully laid in the tables. So we have seen how important these 2 charts are in the way they present the book of Daniel Revelation, simplifying it visually, because when we see something, it becomes really very simple. It's evident that as human beings we understand more when we see something and read it also, and that's why the Lord instructed the Adventist pioneers to really write these visions upon stone, so that we may read them and understand them, as Habakkuk writes it, that write the vision upon stone, that he that readeth it may run, so that we may understand them. So we see how the Lord has beautifully presented these things, and for us today, for our understanding, because the book of Daniel Revelation is just the past, the present, and the future, and to its understanding is very crucial for us. So these charts are there to help us to understand them. You can get them online, you can get them anywhere, or if you can ask a link also, I can send you the link so that you can download them and see the details of what's there. And if you have any question, you can also write it to me, and then I can see how I can answer it in a future video.